Today we're diving into one of the most incredible economic transformations happening anywhere on the planet. We're talking about nations that were built on oil wealth now spending literally trillions of dollars to create a future that has nothing to do with it. And their big plan? Building these massive, futuristic, smart cities. Let's get right into it. For most of us, that's a pretty abstract question, right? Something about the future of energy. But for some of the world's richest countries, that question isn't abstract at all. It's the single question that is driving their entire national strategy. Because think about it. As the whole world pivots to cleaner energy, the economic model that built the modern Gulf, well, it's got an expiration date. And that has kicked off this unbelievable race to completely redesign their economies, basically from scratch. So here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll look at why this is all happening right now. Then we'll get into why these incredible smart cities are the big solution. We'll use Saudi Arabia's NEOM project as our main case study. After that, we'll look at the huge challenges they're facing, see how the entire region is actually part of this, and finally ask, what does this mean for the rest of us?
Okay, so let's start with the fundamental problem here. For decades, the economies of the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC countries, were pretty much powered by one thing, oil and gas. But that whole model is getting less and less reliable.
What we're witnessing right now is a full-blown economic redesign. Global markets are pouring money into renewables, so the GCC's giant sovereign wealth funds are in this high-stakes race to move their money out of oil and create brand new industries that can actually compete on the world stage and secure their future.
And that brings us to the wild solution they've come up with. If you want to build entire new industries out of thin air, where exactly do you put them? Well, the answer they've landed on is you don't just find a place, you build entirely new cities to power them.
And let's be clear, these are not just giant construction projects. They're designed from day one to be economic engines. The whole point is to create these incredible hubs with the best digital infrastructure, super clear regulations, basically the perfect petri dish to attract the world's best talent and spin up new ways to make money in everything from tech and tourism to crazy advanced manufacturing.
And this isn't some far-off fantasy. The strategy is already starting to work. Just look at this data on their non-oil economic growth. It hit 3.7% in 2024, and it's projected to keep right on climbing. Now, for these governments, that's not just a number on a chart. That's proof. It's proof that this massive, almost unimaginable gamble on diversification is actually starting to pay off.
Now, to really wrap your head around the sheer scale of this ambition, we have to look at the biggest player in this whole game, Saudi Arabia, and specifically its mind-blowing flagship project, NEOM, which is the crown jewel of its huge Vision 2030 plan.
So Vision 2030 is this enormous national plan. It has 96 different goals for completely reshaping the country's economy, its society, everything. But when you look a little closer, you see a very, very specific focus.
Yeah, check this out. Out of those 96 goals, a whopping 66, that's almost 70%, are directly connected to data, digital infrastructure, or AI. And that tells you everything you need to know about their core strategy. It's not just about building stuff. It's about building a digital-first economy from the ground up. And behind this incredible vision is just an unbelievable amount of money. The country's sovereign wealth fund, the PIF, is the engine funding this whole transformation. And get this, their goal is to be managing $1 trillion in assets by the end of 2025. A huge chunk of that cash is being pointed directly at making these futuristic cities a reality. This quote about NEOM just perfectly captures the whole mindset. It's not about real estate. It's not about flipping properties. The real goal is to use this city as a launchpad to create completely new industrial ecosystems that can compete globally long after the oil money starts to fade.
Okay, but let's get real. Turning a vision this massive into an actual functioning city, well, that comes with some enormous practical challenges. So now we're going to see how this grand ambition is bumping up against the hard realities of actually getting it done.
So let's take the line, right? NEOM's famous 170-kilometer-long city. The vision is just breathtaking, but actually building it is incredibly complex. The timelines have already been adjusted, with the full project now looking at 2045, and the new short-term goal, a much smaller 2.4-kilometer section. It's a reality check that shows just how difficult this is. So in response to these kinds of challenges, the Public Investment Fund has also gotten smarter with its strategy. At first, the idea was to spread money across more than 100 different companies. Now they're pivoting to concentrate all that firepower into 6 super-focused ecosystems. This isn't a retreat at all. It's a really smart tactical move to make sure the most important projects get every single resource they need to win. Now, while NEOM gets all the headlines, it is so important to understand that this is happening across the entire region. Other GCC countries are also moving super aggressively to build for a post-oil world, but each one is doing it a little differently.
And this table here really lays out those different approaches perfectly. You can see Saudi Arabia is going for the home run, building entirely new ecosystems from scratch with NEOM. Now contrast that with the UAE, which has spent decades perfecting these specialized zones, like Dubai Internet City, focusing on making regulations crystal clear. And then you have cities like Doha and Manama, who are doubling down on their infrastructure to become unbeatable hubs for finance and logistics. Same goal, just very different playbooks.
So what's the end game here? What is the ultimate goal for all of this money, all of this construction? Well, the long-term vision is to create a whole new set of global hubs that can go toe-to-toe with places like Singapore, Hong Kong, or London.
The core concept driving all of this is something called an economic multiplier. See, the sovereign wealth funds aren't just paying for buildings. They are investing directly in the businesses that are going to operate inside these new cities. They're funding the supply chains, the manufacturing, the high-skilled jobs. The city itself is designed to become a self-powering economic engine.
But of course, there are still some major hurdles ahead. For this to truly work, they have to start hitting more realistic timelines. They have to develop the local talent to actually fill all these new jobs they're creating. And they have to get all the regulations across the region to work together to make it seamless to do business. These are going to be the big tests over the next decade.
And all of that leaves us with the final trillion-dollar question. Can you really build a world-class diversified economy from the desert up? The Gulf nations have put the money and the vision on the table to do exactly that. If they pull it off, they could literally reshape global trade. If they don't, the consequences could be huge. The next few decades are going to show us if this historic, audacious gamble actually pays off.